There's a moment, just before the world changes, when everything feels impossibly bright, when the air hums with possibility, and the light seems to linger just a little longer, as if holding its breath. Picture that light now, the golden glow of Lorelin and the silver shimmer of Tulperion, the two trees of Valinor, their radiance weaving through the air like living threads. And there, standing beneath their luminous branches, is Fëanor, the greatest craftsman the elves have ever known. His hands, still humming with the energy of creation, cradle three jewels unlike any the world has seen, the Silmarils. Their light is not borrowed but born, a fire so pure it seems to sing. Can you feel it? That prickle of awe, that whisper of warning, because tonight we step into a story where brilliance and shadow dance too close together, where pride and creation twist into something darker. Where are you listening from tonight, and what hour has settled over your world as we begin this journey? Let us know in the comments below, because stories like this are meant to be shared, whispered under moonlit skies, or curled beneath blankets as the night deepens. This is a tale that begins in light, but stretches into the long, echoing dark, and wherever you are, we're walking this path together. Fëanor doesn't see the shadow yet. How could he? The Silmarils are his masterpiece, their radiance a testament to his skill, his vision. Even the Valar, the guardians of this blessed realm, marvel at them, though their praise is edged with caution. Such beauty, they murmur, but beauty too great can draw eyes you do not wish to meet. Fëanor laughs, or perhaps he only tightens his grip on the jewels. The trees cast their glow, but somewhere beyond the hills, beyond the shimmering borders of Valinor, something stirs, a hunger, a name we'll come to know too well, Morgoth. But for now, there's only light, and the quiet, gathering tension of a choice not yet made. So let's begin there, in that breath before the fall, when the world was still golden, and the darkness was just a whisper at the edge of hearing. The streets of Tirion hum with restless energy as Fëanor stands before his people, the Noldor, his voice cutting through the air like a blade. The light of the trees still dances across the marble towers, but there's a new fire in his words, a fire that burns brighter than Lorelein's gold. Do you see how the Valar hesitate? He cries, his hands clenched around the Silmarils. They would keep us caged here, while our birthright, these jewels, this light, is treated as theirs to control. The crowd stirs, a murmur of agreement rippling through them like wind through leaves. His sons step forward, their faces alight with the same fierce pride, and one by one, they clasp his shoulders, swearing an oath that will echo through the ages. None shall take the Silmarils from us, they vow, their voices merging into a single, unbreakable promise. Not by theft, nor by trickery, nor by the will of any power in this world or beyond. But in the shadows of the palace, Queen Muriel watches, her hands trembling. She sees what others refuse to, the way Fëanor's brilliance casts long, jagged shadows. This oath will bind you, she whispers, though no one hears, not just to glory, but to grief. Her tears fall silently, each one a fleeting mirror of the tree's light, as if even the heavens mourn what is coming. The Noldor sharpen their swords, pack their belongings, their hearts pounding with the thrill of defiance. They believe they march toward freedom, toward a destiny written in starlight. Yet the trees themselves seem to falter, their glow dimming for the briefest moment, as if sensing the unraveling ahead. The air is thick with the scent of blooming flowers and the metallic tang of impending conflict. A choice has been made, a line has been drawn, and somewhere, far beyond the borders of this blessed land, Morgoth smiles in the dark, waiting. The first chill creeps in unnoticed, a whisper of wrongness in the air, like the moment before a storm breaks. The two trees still stand tall, their light weaving through Valinor's meadows and towers, but something moves at the edges. Morgoth. He slithers through hidden paths, his malice a stain on the wind, and beside him, a horror even the valor fear, Ungoliant, her form a tangle of darkness, spinning webs that drink the very light from the world. Together, they strike. Fangs sink into the roots of Laurelin and Tulperion, and the trees shudder, their golden and silver radiance flickering like guttering candles. The poison spreads, slow at first, then all at once their leaves blacken, their glow dims, and with a final, agonized pulse, the light of Valinor gutters out. Darkness swallows the land, thick and suffocating, broken only by the distant, panicked glow of torches as the elves cry out in terror. Fëanor's scream splits the silence. He stumbles forward, hands outstretched as if he could catch the fading light, but all that remains are the Silmarils, burning in his palms like captured stars. This is their doing, he roars, turning on the valor, his voice raw with betrayal. They stood by while Morgoth walked among us. They let this happen. His sons gather around him, their swords drawn, edges catching the feeble torchlight. The Noldor, once proud and joyful, now stand like a storm about to break, their hearts pounding with fury and fear. The oath they swore echoes louder in the darkness, twisting from promise to curse. Not by theft, nor by trickery. They murmur, but the words taste like ash. In the chaos, whispers rise quiet, trembling things. Is this truly the path? An elder asks, fingers brushing the hilt of his unused sword. Will vengeance bring back the light? But Fëanor's rage is a wildfire, scorching away doubt. He turns his back on Valinor, on the valor, on everything but the Silmarils' glow. We take our fate into our own hands, he declares, and the Noldor, heartsick and desperate, follow. They do not see the first blood spilled until it's too late. A clash at the docks, a kinsman's cry cut short. The sea churns red beneath their ships, and the wind carries a new sound, the wailing of those left behind, their voices lost in the growing dark. The Noldor sail onward, chasing a horizon where no light waits, only the long shadow of Morgoth's laughter, ringing across the waves. The road from Tirion stretches long and bleak, beneath a sky emptied of light. The Noldor march in silence at first, their footsteps heavy with the weight of exile, their cloaks fluttering like tattered banners in the bitter wind. Fëanor walks ahead, his face set like stone, the Silmarils blazing at his chest, 3 mocking stars in a world gone dark. Behind him, the host stretches for miles, warriors with swords they've never used, mothers clutching children too young to understand, elders who remember the first dawn in Valinor and now witness its undoing. The air thrums with a terrible energy, part grief, part fury, as if the very earth rebels beneath their feet. Then come the messengers, figures of light, cutting through the gloom, their voices gentle but unyielding. Turn back, they urge, hands outstretched. This path leads only to sorrow. The valor offer forgiveness if you lay down your pride. For a breath, the crowd wavers. Fingolfin steps forward, his eyes searching the faces of his people. He sees the exhaustion, the doubt. Must we truly abandon all we've loved? He murmurs, but his words are drowned by Fëanor's sudden, searing laughter. Forgiveness. Fëanor spits the word like poison. They let the trees die. They would have us kneel forever in their gilded cages. His voice cracks like a whip, and the Noldor stir, their resolve hardening anew. Yet Fingolfin does not move. The tension between the brothers hangs thick, a storm waiting to break. The host splinters. Fëanor's followers press onward, their pace frantic, as if they can outrun the consequences of their oath. But the others, Fingolfin's people, the wounded, the uncertain, lag behind, their steps faltering. When the news comes, it arrives on a gust of icy wind. The ships at Loskar are burning. Flames lick the sky, casting grotesque shadows on the water, and the stench of charred wood mingles with salt and smoke. Fëanor's doing, a final, brutal stroke to ensure no one turns back. Across the sea, Fingolfin's people stand stranded on the shore, their cries lost in the roar of the inferno. The betrayal is complete. Now only the Helcaraxa remains, a wasteland of grinding ice, where the cold bites deeper than any blade. Those who dare it whisper of horrors, crevices that swallow whole families, winds that steal breath mid-sentence, a darkness so absolute it seeps into the soul. Fingolfin lifts his sword, its edge catching what little light exists. We will not perish here, he vows, but his voice is raw with grief. Somewhere ahead, Fëanor's laughter echoes, sharp and bright as a shard of glass. The Noldor march on, divided by fire and ice, their story already twisting into legend. One of desperate courage, of ruinous pride, of light pursued and light forsaken. And above it all, the Silmarils burn, their glow a cruel reminder of all that's been lost. The harbor of Elqualinde gleams under a moonless sky, its white towers shimmering like bleached bone in the starlight. The Teleri elves stand silent along the docks, their faces unreadable as Fëanor strides forward, his voice cutting through the salt-laced wind. "Lend us your ships," he demands, fingers twitching toward the hilt of his sword. The doom of Morgoth waits for no one, but the Teleri do not move. Their king, Alwe, shakes his head, his voice gentle but unyielding. "These vessels are our life's work, crafted not for war but for joy. We cannot give them. For a heartbeat, the world holds its breath." Then Fëanor's patience snaps like a frayed rope. The first blade flashes before anyone can cry out, a Noldor sword biting into Teleri flesh. The scream that follows is a thing of raw horror, a sound no elf should ever make. The docks erupt into chaos, steel ringing against steel, the once pearl-white stones splashed crimson. Fingolfin staggers back, his hands clutching at his chest, as if the violence has struck him physically. "Brother, stop this madness," he roars, but his voice is lost in the din. The Noldor, their eyes wild with desperation, press forward, driving the Teleri into the frothing waves. Some try to flee, their silken robes tangling around their legs as they fall. Others fight back, their graceful hands now gripping harpoons and oars, their songs of the sea replaced by ragged shouts of pain. And then, a voice, not from the battle, but from the very air, deep and terrible as the roots of the earth. The Doom of Mandos rolls over them like a tide, shaking the stones beneath their feet. Blood calls for blood, it thunders. Your oath will hound you, your pride will starve you, and the light you seek will forever slip through your fingers. The fighting stutters to a halt, warriors trembling as the words sink in, but Fëanor only laughs, a sound like breaking glass. Let the valor curse us. He snarls, kicking a fallen Teleri shield into the surf. We are beyond their reach now. The stolen ships loom dark against the horizon, their sails snapping in the wind like hungry mouths. Fëanor's followers scramble aboard, their hands still sticky with kin blood, their eyes avoiding the shore where Fingolfin stands motionless. The water laps at his boots, pink with diluted gore. Behind him, the rest of the Noldor cluster together, their children weeping, their elders staring hollow-eyed at the carnage. The ships pull away, leaving them stranded. No curses follow them, no pleas, only the whispering sea, its waves hissing against the shore like a mother mourning her children. Somewhere beyond the black water, the Helcaraxa waits, its ice groaning, its winds howling. But for those left behind, the true cold has already settled in their hearts. The first footfall on Middle-earth shore should have been triumphant. The crunch of sand beneath boots, the salt-kissed wind carrying the scent of pine and promise. Instead, Fëanor stands rigid, his gaze locked on the distant peaks of Thangorodrim, where Morgoth's fortress looms like a fang against the bruised sky. The Silmarils burn against his chest, their light pulsing in time with his heartbeat, a constant reminder of what was stolen. Behind him, the stolen ships bob in the shallows, their masts skeletal against the twilight. His sons shift uneasily, their hands stained with salt and soot from the fighting at Alqualondeth. Then comes the command, sharp as a knife between ribs, burn them. The words hang in the air, too terrible to grasp at first. Curufin, ever the mirror of his father's will, is the first to move, snatching a torch from a trembling squire. But Medros hesitates, his fingers tightening around the hilt of his sword. Father, he murmurs, without the ships, how will Fingolfin's people follow? How will we? Fëanor whirls on him, his eyes two chips of flint. They chose hesitation over destiny. Let the ice teach them what I could not. The flames take quickly. Tar-black smoke billows into the twilight, swallowing the stars. The heat licks at the Noldor's faces, painting them in grotesque flickers of orange and shadow. Somewhere in that inferno, the last remnants of Valinor of Mercy turn to ash. Across the sea, Fingolfin's host stands frozen on the far shore. The firelight dances on the horizon, a cruel mockery of the trees' lost glow. A child tugs at her mother's cloak. Is that a signal? Are they coming back for us? The mother says nothing, only pulls her closer, her throat working around a sob. Fingolfin's sword glints as he raises it, not in fury, but in grim resolve. The Helcaraxa stretches before them, a wasteland of groaning ice and bottomless crevices, where the wind sings with the voices of the lost. We are not abandoned, he declares, though his voice cracks. We are unshackled. The words kindle something in the weary crowd, not the wildfire of Fëanor's rage, but the slow, steady burn of embers in snow. Step by step, they turn northward, toward the grinding ice. Back on the beach, Fëanor watches the last mast collapse into the flames. The heat sears his skin, but he does not flinch. His sons exchange glances behind his back, their silent questions louder than the roar of the fire. For the first time, doubt slithers between them, thin as smoke. The oath binds them, yes, but to what? Glory, vengeance, or only to the dwindling light in their father's eyes, bright as the Silmarils and just as brittle. The wind shifts, carrying the stench of burning wood across the waves, and far beneath it, something else, the distant, echoing laughter of Morgoth, savoring his first victory. The night air shivers with the clash of steel and the guttural cries of orcs, as Fëanor's host crashes into Morgoth's forces like a wave against black cliffs. This is no orderly battle. It is a storm of vengeance, the Noldor's blades cutting through the darkness like shards of fallen stars, their armor reflecting the faint glow of the heavens above. Fëanor fights at the forefront, his sword a blur of silver, his voice raw with fury as he shouts Morgoth's name like a curse. Every stroke of his blade is a promise, every step forward a defiance of the darkness that stole the tree's light. His sons rally beside him, their faces set in grim determination, but the tide of orcs seems endless, a seething mass of claws and snarling teeth, then a sound that chills the blood. A deep, resonant growl, like embers stirred in a furnace, and the earth trembles as the Balrogs emerge. Their shadows swallow the starlight, their whips of flame lashing through the ranks of elves like tongues of lightning. Fëanor does not retreat. He charges, his heart a drumbeat of reckless rage, his sword raised high. For a moment, it seems even the fire demons hesitate this elf, who burns brighter than their own hellish glow. But Morgoth's creatures do not fear. They surround him, their molten eyes gleaming with cruel amusement, and the battle turns. Medros is the first to reach his father's side, his shield splintering under a Balrog's blow. Celegorm's arrows find their marks, but the demons do not fall. One by one, Fëanor's sons are driven back, their armor scorched, their limbs trembling with exhaustion. A whip of fire coils around Fëanor's chest, and the smell of searing flesh fills the air. He staggers, his sword slipping from his grasp, but his gaze never wavers from the distant peaks of Thangorodrim, where the Silmaril's stolen light pulses faintly against the sky. His lips move, shaping words too fierce for mere sound, a curse, a vow, a final act of defiance. Then he falls, and the night itself seems to shudder. The Noldor's cries of grief are swallowed by the din of battle, but the Balrogs do not press their advantage. They withdraw, melting into the shadows as if satisfied. Medros cradles his father's broken form, his hands shaking, his voice a broken whisper. This is not the end, he swears, though the words taste like ash. Around them, the survivors gather, their faces streaked with blood and sweat, their eyes hollow with loss. The ground is littered with the fallen, elf and orc alike, their bodies tangled in the grim embrace of war. A cold wind rises, carrying the scent of smoke and iron. Somewhere in the east, the first hints of dawn creep over the horizon, but the light is pale, lifeless, a mockery of the radiance they once knew. The Noldor kneel in the dirt, their swords stained, their hearts heavier than their blades. Fëanor's body lies still, his face eerily peaceful in death, as if he's finally escaped the fire that consumed him in life. His sons exchange glances, their fingers tightening around their weapons. The oath binds them still, its weight heavier now, its price measured in blood. And high above, the stars blink coldly, indifferent witnesses to the first battle of Beleriand. The war has only begun. The years stretch long and heavy over Beleriand, each season marked not by the turning of leaves, but by the slow tightening of the Noldor's grip around Angband's black gates. Fingolfin stands atop a windswept ridge, his cloak snapping like a banner, his eyes fixed on the distant plumes of smoke rising from Morgoth's forge. Below him, the land hums with quiet industry, elven smiths hammering swords in hidden glades, scouts slipping like shadows through the mountain passes, their whispers weaving a net of vigilance around the enemy. This is the Siege of Angband, a war of patience as much as steel, where every unbroken dawn is a victory. Yet unity is a fragile thing, especially among those who have known betrayal. The Noldor's camps are scattered like stars across the land, each kingdom a flicker of light against the growing dark. In the east, Midros's people keep watch from the highlands of Imring, their fortresses carved into the stone, their arrows ever nock. But Midros himself is gone vanished during a skirmish at the edge of the waste, dragged into Angband's depths by laughing orcs. The news spreads like poison, and for the first time in years, the elves taste despair. Then comes Fingon, not with an army, not with fanfare, but alone, his harp slung across his back, his heart pounding with a reckless hope. The songs say he sang as he climbed Thangarudrim's sheer cliffs, his voice threading through the howling wind, a melody from their lost days in Valinor. Some claim man, Wes eagles carried him. Others whisper it was something older, fiercer. The bond of kinship not even bloodshed could fully sever. However he reached the pinnacle, what he found there would haunt him forever. Midros, chained to the mountainside, his right hand withered, his eyes hollow with torment. The moment their gazes lock, the past unravels. Fingon does not hesitate. His blade flashes, severing the shackle, and when the iron will not break, he severs the hand instead. Midros's scream echoes across the peaks, but when he collapses into Fingon's arms, his first words are not of pain, but of thanks. The ride back to the camps is a blur of wind and blood. Midros slumped against his cousin's back, his breath ragged. When Fingolfin sees them, his stern face crumples for just an instant before he barks orders for healers. That night, by the firelight, the Noldor gather Fëanor's sons and Fingolfin's people alike, and for the first time since the burning of the ships, something like peace settles among them. But oaths are not so easily undone. In the quiet hours, when the watchfires burn low, Midros presses his maimed wrist to his chest and murmurs the old words like a prayer. None shall take the Silmarils from us. The others echo him, their voices barely audible, their eyes darting toward the shadows. Morgoth, they know, is listening. His armies may be still, his fortress silent, but his malice festers in the dark, patient as a spider in its web. The siege holds, yes, but elves are not meant for endless war. Seasons blur into years, then decades. Swords rust in their scabbards, watchmen nod at their posts. The younger generations, born under Beleriand's pale stars, whisper that Morgoth is but a legend, a ghost story to frighten children. And in the depths of Angband, the Dark Lord smiles, his fingers steepled, his gaze fixed on the cracks forming in the Noldor's resolve. The siege will break. It is only a matter of time. The first betrayal comes not with a clang of swords, but with whispered words in the dark. Morgoth's spies move like shadows among the Edain, the newly arrived tribes of men who once stood shoulder to shoulder with the Noldor under Beleriand's pale stars. At first, the lies are subtle hints, dropped in hunting parties, rumors murmured around campfires. Why should elves rule these lands forever? a voice slithers through the night. Their pride already doomed Valinor. Will you share their fate? The words take root, watered by envy and fear, until even the noblest hearts begin to sour. One by one, the bonds fray. A scout fails to return from patrol. A map of hidden pathways vanishes from Fingolfin's war table. Then, the hammer blow, the fall of Minas Tirith. The tower on the island of Tol Sirion, guarded for centuries by Finrod's steadfast kin, falls not to orcish hordes, but to treachery. Men with familiar faces, men who once broke bread with elves, throw open the gates under cover of darkness. The fortress is overrun before the alarm can sound, its silver banners trampled into mud. When Finrod arrives with reinforcements, the river runs red, and the traitors are gone, vanished into the wilds with Morgoth's gold heavy in their pouches, and his laughter ringing in their ears. In Himring's high halls, Medros paces like a caged wolf, his maimed wrist tucked against his chest. We trusted them, he snarls, kicking over a chair. Caranthir, ever the bitterest of Fëanor's sons, spits into the fire. I warned you, mortal hearts are weak, they rot faster than fruit. But Maglor, his harp silent in his lap, stares into the flames. Not all, he murmurs, not yet. He's right, of course. Some men like the House of Bear hold fast, their loyalty unshaken even as suspicion poisons the air around them. But trust, once cracked, is hard to mend. Elven sentries now eye their human allies with cold scrutiny. Shared watchfires burn lower, conversations clipped and wary. The alliance that once made Morgoth tremble now teeters on the edge of a knife, and in the hidden city of Gondolin, Turgon receives the news in silence. His fingers tighten around the white marble railing of his tower, his gaze drifting north toward the shadowed peaks where Morgoth waits. Close the gates, he tells his captains, his voice hollow as a tomb. Let no one enter who cannot name the stars as we knew them in Valinor. The great doors of the city, wrought with images of the trees, grind shut with finality. Outside, the wind howls through the encircling mountains, carrying with it the faint, mocking echo of Morgoth's triumph. The Dark Lord needs no armies to win this battle. He has only to wait, to let doubt fester, to watch as elves and men, once united by light, now turn their blades toward one another. In the ruins of Minas Tirith, a single banner flutters, half buried in blood-stained earth, the emblem of Finrod's house, torn down by hands that once swore to defend it. The message is clear. The war has entered a new, darker phase, one not of clashing steel, but of shattered faith. And Morgoth, enthroned in the depths of Angband, smiles as the first threads of his victory tighten around the throats of his enemies. The first snow of winter drifts silently over the hidden valley of Tumladen, settling on Gondolin's white towers like a shroud. For centuries, the city has stood untouched by shadow, its gleaming walls reflecting the dawn as they once mirrored the light of the trees. But tonight, the wind carries a different scent: charcoal and iron, the acrid tang of betrayal. Meaglin, his face gaunt with hunger for power, has whispered the city's secrets into Morgoth's ear, and now the mountains tremble with the tread of armies. The attack comes at dawn, though no sun rises to witness it. Dragons, their scales black as polished obsidian, surge through the passes, their bellies glowing with furnace heat. Balrogs stride among them, whips cracking like thunder, while legions of orcs swarm like ants over the cliffs. The elves of Gondolin, roused from sleep by the blaring of silver trumpets, meet the onslaught with blades honed over lifetimes of peace. King Turgon stands atop the highest tower, his crown glinting, his voice ringing clear above the chaos. For the light of the trees, he cries, and the echoes of Valinor seem to answer in the clash of steel. Tuor fights like a man possessed, his great axe hewing through orcish ranks, his eyes locked on Eärendil as she herds the children toward the secret passage she alone had foreseen. Their son, Eärendil, clings to her cloak, his small face pale but unafraid. The streets run red, the fountains choked with ash. Glorfindel, his golden hair streaming like a banner, duels a Balrog upon the crumbling bridge of the king's square. The creature's fire scorches his armor, but he does not yield, not until his sword finds its heart, and they plunge together into the abyss. The city burns. Towers that once held the echoes of elven laughter collapse in showers of sparks, their marble facades blackening. Turgon, his palace crumbling around him, refuses to flee. "This is my home," he murmurs, kneeling beside the body of his fallen captain. The roof caves in with a roar, and the last king of Gondolin is swallowed by flame. Through the smoke and screams, Tuor and Eärendil lead the survivors, a ragged line of widows, orphans, and warriors with empty quivers, into the mountains. The tunnel, carved in secret, is slick with blood and melting ice. Behind them, Gondolin's great gates shatter, the last defenders overrun. Ahead lies only darkness and the desperate hope of the sea. Eärendil stumbles, his foot slipping on the treacherous path, but his father catches him, hauling him up without breaking stride. The boy's eyes, wide with terror, fix on the burning city reflected in his mother's tears. Somewhere in the night, Miglin's scream rises above the din cut short as he is dashed upon the rocks, his treachery repaid with Morgoth's indifference. The wind howls through the peaks, carrying the scent of ruin. The survivors do not look back. They cannot. Each step is a farewell, each breath a prayer. The Silmarils, flickering in the depths of Angband, might as well be stars in another world. And high above, unseen, the eagles of men circle, their cries lost in the wind. The age of hidden kingdoms is over. What comes next will be forged in exile, in salt and starlight, and the stubborn refusal to let the light die. The waves crash against the hull of Ungoliant with a fury meant to break lesser ships, but Eärendil stands firm at the prow, his fingers curled around the tiller, his eyes fixed on the horizon where the sky bleeds into the sea. The Silmaril bound to the mast flickers like a trapped star, its light cutting through the storm's gloom, a beacon in the chaos. For years, he has wandered the shores of Middle-earth, gathering whispers of ruin, Gondolin fallen, Doriath in ashes, the Noldor's kingdoms reduced to smoldering rubble. Now, with the last of his father's people clinging to the ragged coasts, he does what no elf or man has dared in centuries. He sails west, toward the forbidden shores of Valinor, though the very waves seem to rise against him. Elwing's parting kiss still burns on his lips. She had pressed the jewel into his hands, her voice steady despite the tears in her eyes. "They will listen to you," she'd said, as if she could will it into truth. But the sea has other plans. Whispers slither through the salt-stiffened ropes, voices that are not voices, hissing of pride and doom. The wind shrieks like a thing alive, tearing at the sails, and for 3 nights, the ship is tossed like a leaf in a gale. Eärendil's arms ache from holding fast, his throat raw from shouting orders no one can hear. Yet through it all, The Silmaril's glow never wavers. Then a scream, not from the storm, but from the shore they've left behind. Elwing, surrounded by the sons of Fëanor, their swords gleaming with the same desperation that once drove their father. They have come for the jewel, as they swore they would, and Elwing, back to the cliff's edge, does the unthinkable. She leaps. The wind catches her cloak, spreading it like wings, and for a heartbeat, she hangs suspended between sky and sea, the Silmaril blazing in her hands. The waves swallow her whole, but Ulmo, Lord of Waters, does not let love drown so easily. From the depths, a great shape surges, a wave taller than towers, cradling Elwing in its crest, bearing her gently to Vingolot's side. She is gasping, laughing, her hair tangled with seaweed, the jewel still clutched to her chest. Eärendil hauls her aboard, his heart pounding as if he's the one who's faced death, and for a moment, the storm itself stills, as though holding its breath. When the clouds part at last, it is not the sun they reveal, but the distant glimmer of the enchanted isles, the threshold of the undying lands. The Valar, who turned their backs long ago, now stir. Man, Wes eagles circle high above, their cries piercing the silence. On the shores of Valinor, the air hums with a tension not felt since the darkening of the trees. Eärendil kneels in the sand, Elwing at his side, the Silmaril's light spilling across their faces like a plea, and the Valar listen, not because of the jewel's radiance, not because of oaths or bloodlines, but because of this, a man and an elf, weary beyond measure, who dared to hope when hope itself seemed folly. The winds shift, carrying the scent of blooming Malorn trees, and far to the east, the first drums of war echo in the deep. Morgoth, hunched in his iron throne, feels the vibration in his bones, something older than dragons, fiercer than fire. The host of the west is coming. The sky splits like a wound, bleeding fire and thunder, as the host of the west descends upon Beleriand. This is no mere battle. It is the unraveling of the world itself. The Valar, their faces veiled in light too terrible to behold, stride at the forefront, their mere presence sending mountains to their knees. Behind them, legions of Maiar shimmer like living storms, their voices weaving spells that make the air hum. And among them, the last of the Noldor, their armor dented, their eyes hollow with grief and grim resolve. They march not for victory, but for an ending. Morgoth's hordes surge forward, a tide of fangs and claws, but the earth rebels beneath them. Fissures yawn open, swallowing whole regiments of orcs, while rivers of molten rock erupt from the ground, painting the battlefield in hellish hues. The dragons come next, great winged serpents, their scales blacker than midnight, their breath a poison that withers the very air. Ankalagan the Black, largest of them all, blots out the sun with his vast wings, his roar shaking the foundations of the land. But Eärendil, herald of Manwë, raises his spear, and the eagles answer, their talons tearing at the beast's underbelly until the sky rains scales and blood. In the chaos, the sons of Fëanor fight like men possessed. Medros, his maimed arm bound in iron, drives his sword through a Balrog's heart, his laughter raw with madness. Maglor, his harp-string voice now hoarse from screaming, cuts down orcs with a blade that glows like captured moonlight. They fight not for the Valar's mercy, but for the oath that has gnawed at their souls for centuries. When at last they reach Morgoth's throne, a grotesque thing of twisted metal and charred bone, the Dark Lord does not cower. He smiles, his eyes flickering to the iron chest at his feet. The Silmarils lie within, their light now threaded with veins of shadow. The moment the lid cracks open, the world holds its breath. The jewels pulse, their radiance dimmed by centuries of Morgoth's touch, yet still unbearably beautiful. Medros reaches for one, his fingers trembling, then recoils as if burned. The Silmarils, hallowed by Varda herself, reject them now, searing their flesh with a pain beyond fire. Maglor staggers back, his hands blistered, his voice breaking. "We are the trespassers," he whispers. "The oath was never ours to keep." High above, the battle reaches its crescendo. Tulkas the Strong wrestles Morgoth to the ground, his chains forged from the very essence of doom. The Dark Lord howls as he is dragged toward the void, his claws raking furrows in the earth. But his last act is one of spite. With a final, wrenching effort, he stamps his foot, and the land itself sunders. Beleriand cracks like thin ice, its forests and cities sliding into the sea, its rivers boiling away into mist. The Noldor scramble for higher ground, their cries lost in the cataclysm. When the dust settles, the survivors stand knee-deep in the wreckage of an age. The Silmarils are gone, one cast into the earth's fiery depths by Medros in his despair, another hurled into the sea by Maglor, his tears salting the waves. The third rides now on Eärendil's brow, a beacon in the heavens, forever beyond mortal grasp. The Noldor, their kingdom's dust, their pride ash, turn their faces west at last. The Valor's pardon is bitter on their tongues, but the sea longing pulls them homeward, and Morgoth, the void is cold and silent and endless, but even there, in the absence of light, his hatred festers. Waiting, the shore is blackened where the waves meet the land, as if the very earth mourns what is about to unfold. Medros kneels in the damp sand, his breathing ragged, his maimed arm cradled against his chest. The Silmaril lies before him, its light flickering weakly, like a star drowning in smoke. He reaches for it, slowly, as if in a dream, and the moment his fingers brush its surface, the air fills with the stench of searing flesh. A scream tears from his throat, raw and animal, but he does not let go. Not yet. "This is what we swore," he gasps, his voice breaking. "This is what we demanded." The jewel's light pulses, not with the radiance of Lorelin, but with something colder, crueler, a mockery of all they once coveted. Maglor stands a pace behind, his harp slung across his back, its strings snapped and silent. His hands, once deft enough to coax melodies from the wind itself, hover over the second Silmaril as if it might bite. When he finally touches it, the pain is worse than he imagined. Not the clean burn of fire, but the slow, gnawing agony of a wound that will never heal. "We are not the ones who were meant to hold them," he murmurs, more to himself than to his brother. The words taste like ash. The oath they swore centuries ago, in the heat of pride and grief, has led them here, to a desolate beach, their people scattered, their father's legacy reduced to 2 cursed jewels and the weight of too many dead. Medros' laughter is a shattered thing. He staggers to his feet, the Silmaril clenched in his ruined grip, and turns toward the chasm where the earth still smokes from Morgoth's fall. "Then let it end," he snarls. There's no ceremony, no final words, just a single, swift step into the abyss. The light winks out as he falls, swallowed by the fire at the world's roots. Maglor does not watch. He turns instead to the sea, the Silmaril rolling from his scorched palm into the frothing waves. The water hisses where it touches the jewel, steam rising in ghostly tendrils before the depths claim it forever. For a long moment, he stands there, salt stinging his wounds, the wind tugging at his threadbare cloak. Then he does the only thing left to him. He sings. Not the battle hymns of the Noldor, not the proud odes of Valinor, but a lament for his brothers, for his father, for the light they loved too fiercely. The notes are uneven, his voice cracked with grief, but the melody carries anyway, drifting over the empty beaches where no one remains to hear it. And one by one, the elves who survived the ruin of Beleriand turn their faces west. The ships are few, the sails patched with sorrow, but the call of the sea is stronger now than the memory of home. Those who board them do not look back. Those who stay, the weary, the wounded, the ones who cannot bear another journey, fade into the twilight, their voices thinning with the years until they are only whispers in the grass, half-heard stories on the wind. The age of the Noldor's glory ends not with a clash of swords, not with a final, desperate stand, but here, on a broken shore, with one brother's body lost to fire and the other's heart lost to song. The oath is fulfilled, the price is paid, and somewhere, far beyond the circles of the world, Morgoth's laughter echoes in the void, a reminder that some shadows never truly fade. The night sky over Middle-earth has never known a star like this, not the cold, distant pinpricks of Varda's earlier designs, but a living flame, pulsing with the rhythm of a heartbeat, Eärendil's Silmaril, bound now to the prow of Ungoliant as it sails the heavens. Below, elves pause in their wanderings, men lift their faces from the plow. Even the trees seem to hush their rustling as the new light spills silver across the land. It is not the radiance of the trees, nor the fierce glow of Fëanor's jewels in their prime, but something quieter, gentler, a light that does not blind, but guides. For the first time in an age, the word hope is whispered without irony. Yet for all its beauty, this star is born of grief. The valor's pardon, when it comes, is not the triumphant homecoming the Noldor once dreamed of. Those who board the white ships for the west do so with heads bowed, their hands stained by kinslaying and broken oaths. The halls of Tirion still stand, but the laughter within them is hollow, the songs tinged with loss. Even the air smells different, less of blooming laurel, more of salt and bitter memory. The Doom of Mandos lingers, not as a curse, but as a scar, and what of those who remain? The elves who linger in Middle-earth trace Eärendil's path with weary eyes, their hearts torn between the sea longing and the weight of all they've built, and burned beneath these twilight skies. In the ruins of Doriath, a minstrel plucks a broken harp, singing of Thingol's pride and Melion's tears. By the ashes of Gondolin, a child gathers white stones, stacking them into towers that will never stand again. The tales spread, not as victories, but as warnings, of how love for light can twist into possession, how an oath can become a noose, how even the mightiest kingdoms are but sand against the tide. But the star shines on. When a lost traveler stumbles in the wilds, its light leads them home. When a mother rocks her crying babe, she points to the sky and murmurs, "See." Even in the dark, something watches over us, and in the far north, where Morgoth's shadow once lay heaviest, the Silmaril's gleam pierces the lingering gloom like a needle through cloth, stitching the frayed edges of the world back together, one thread at a time. The Noldor's age is over. The age of men dawns. But high above, where the sky kisses the sea, a ship with sails woven from dawn's first light sails forever. Its captain caught between two worlds, no longer mortal, not quite divine. And in his wake, the last Silmaril burns, not as a trophy, not as a prize, but as a promise that no darkness, no matter how deep, is ever truly endless. The leaves of Lothlorien fall like whispered secrets, golden and slow, catching the light in ways no mortal tree ever could. Galadriel stands beneath the Malorn's towering branches, her fingers trailing over the bark, as if reading the years etched there. The air hums with the faintest shimmer of enchantment, just enough to make the sunlight dance differently here, to make the river's song sound older than the stones. But even this, the last true refuge of the Eldar in Middle-earth, is not what it once was. The world grows heavier, its bones settling into a shape less hospitable to magic. The elves call it the fading, though no one can say precisely when it began. Perhaps when Beleriand sank beneath the waves, perhaps when the last Silmaril vanished into the sky. Or perhaps it was always happening, slow as the turning of stars. Galadriel's mirror shows her fragments, a ship with gray sails, a crown of silver fire, a hand reaching for something just out of frame. She does not need the water's visions to know her time here is ending. The others feel it too, the way their voices no longer echo quite as long in the empty halls, the way their crafts, once luminous with hidden light, now dim sooner under mortal hands. Even the stars seem farther away, their ancient names slipping from memory like sand through open fingers. Yet she stays, not out of stubbornness, though she has that in abundance, but because someone must tend the embers a little longer. Someone must remember the weight of Fëanor's pride, the taste of Valinor's wine, the exact hue of Laurelin's glow before the darkening. In the evenings, when the Malorn leaves turn the color of lost treasure, the elves of Lothlorien gather to sing. Their melodies are softer now, threaded with a sorrow that wasn't there in the years of the trees. The younger ones, those born under Eärendil's star rather than Telperian's silver, ask for the old tales of the Silmarils, of Gondolin's fall, of the oath that burned like a fever through their kin. Galadriel lets others tell them. She listens instead to the spaces between the words, to the way the wind carries the refrain of a song Maglor might have once sung on a distant shore. It's not grief she feels, not exactly. It's something quieter, sharper, like holding a shard of broken glass and realizing too late it's drawn blood. Beyond the golden wood, the world marches on. Men build kingdoms where elven towers once stood, their songs loud and bright and blessedly fleeting. They name the stars without knowing their stories, plant orchards where the soil still remembers elf blood. Galadriel does not begrudge them this. How could she? They burn so fiercely, so briefly. But sometimes, when a particularly brave mortal wanders too close to Lothlorien's borders, she catches a glimpse of something familiar in their eyes, the same hunger for light that once drove her own people to greatness and ruin. It's enough to make her wonder, if the Noldor had been mortal, would they have cherished the Silmarils more, knowing they couldn't keep them forever? The wind shifts, carrying the scent of apple blossoms from a nearby grove. For a moment, just a moment, it smells like Valinor. Galadriel closes her eyes. When she opens them, the light has changed the gold, deepening into amber, the shadows stretching long across the grass. Soon, the evening star will rise. Eärendil's Silmaril, a pinprick of white fire in the gathering dark. She wonders if he ever looks down, if he sees what's become of the world they fought so hard to save. Then she smiles, small and private. Of course he does, and perhaps in some far-off age, when even Lothlorien is only a whisper in the grass, someone will stand beneath a different tree and remember her too. The firelight in Rivendell's halls flickers low, casting long shadows that dance like memories across the worn tapestries. Frodo Baggins sits by the hearth, his fingers tracing the cold weight of the one ring where it rests against his chest, a whisper of the same darkness that once coiled around Morgoth's iron crown. Outside, the night is thick with the scent of pine and distant rain, but above the treetops, a single point of light pierces the gloom, Eärendil's star, unwavering as it has been for ages. Elrond steps soundless onto the balcony, his eyes reflecting that same distant glow. "You carry more than a ring," he murmurs. "You carry the weight of all our yesterdays." The elves move through the last homely house like ghosts, already half departed, their laughter softer now, their songs tinged with farewell. Arwen pauses by a loom where a tapestry of the two trees hangs unfinished, the threads of Laurelin's gold frayed with time. She touches the empty space where Tulperian's silver should be. "We wove our brightest stories into this world," she says, "but the loom belongs to others now." In the courtyard, Gandalf packs his pipe, the smoke curling into shapes that might be dragons, or might just be smoke. He doesn't say what everyone knows, that the ring is a shadow of the same hunger that birthed the Silmarils, that Frodo's quest is but the last echo of an ancient war. Yet when the Fellowship sets out at dawn, it's the light of Eärendil's star that guides them through the mist-shrouded pass. Legolas, his bow strung with a melody only elves can hear, looks up and smiles. "The light remembers," he says simply, and for a moment the weight of the ring feels lighter, as if the very air is whispering, "This too shall pass." The road ahead is dark, the odds impossible, but the star shines on, not as a relic of lost glory, but as a stubborn, quiet truth. Light doesn't vanish. It changes hands. In Lothlorien, Galadriel's mirror shows no visions of the past. No Silmarils, no burning ships, no kingdoms drowned. Only Frodo, small and weary, standing at the edge of a precipice no elf could fathom. She closes her eyes. When she opens them, the water stills, reflecting nothing but the sky, and in it, that same unchanging star. The elves will sail, the ages will turn, but up there, beyond the reach of time or tide, a ship still sails, a jewel still burns. And somewhere, in the quiet between heartbeats, Maglor's lament drifts on the wind, not as a dirge, but as a lullaby for the world they're leaving behind. The ring is heavy, the star is bright, and the story always is just beginning. The harbor at the Grey Havens is quiet, save for the gentle lapping of waves against the hulls of the white ships. A mist hangs over the water, softening the edges of the world, as if the sea itself is reluctant to let them go. Galadriel steps aboard, her hand trailing over the rail. Once, she crossed this same water in the opposite direction, her heart full of pride and the hunger for realms of her own. Now the weight of centuries rests in her bones, not as a burden, but as a tapestry woven from too many threads to name. Elrond follows, his gaze lingering on the shoreline where his daughter stands, her mortal life, a choice he honors even as it aches. Gandalf, "No," Mithrandir once more, His staff, now just a tall stick of weathered wood, pauses at the prow, his eyes crinkling at the corners. The wind carries the scent of salt and a faint, far-off sweetness, like blossoms from a garden no one tends anymore. The sails catch the light of the setting sun, glowing gold for a fleeting moment before the ship turns westward. Behind them, the shores of Middle-earth recede, the trees blurring into a smudge of green, the towers of the havens shrinking to specks. Somewhere in those hills, a child might be pointing at the ships, asking their parents where the elves are going. Somewhere in a dusty library, a scholar might be tracing the faded letters of an old scroll that tells of the Silmarils, their light now as distant as the first dawn. The elves on deck do not weep. They sing instead, their voices threading together into a melody that has no name, but has been sung at every parting since the world was young. Galadriel closes her eyes, and for a heartbeat, she is not on a ship, but standing beneath the golden boughs of Lorelin, the light dappling her skin, the laughter of her kin ringing in her ears. Then the vision fades, and there is only the sea, the sky, and the slow, inevitable pull of the tide. The age of elves is ending, but the stories, oh, the stories will outlast them all. Frodo's tale, barons, Luthians, even Fëanors, they are stitched into the very fabric of the world, waiting to be found by those who still look up at Eärendil's star and wonder. The last sliver of land vanishes beneath the horizon, and the ship sails on, into the twilight where the water and the heavens meet. And far behind, on a quiet beach where the waves sigh over smooth stones, a single white gull takes flight, its wings catching the light like a forgotten promise. The fourth age dawns in a world that has forgotten how to tremble at the names of gods. The roads where elves once walked are now trodden by merchants and messengers, their cobbles worn smooth under cartwheels instead of silver-shod feet. Yet in the firelight of taverns and the quiet corners of royal courts, the old tales persist not as history, but as something more potent, memory turned to myth. A minstrel plucks the strings of a harp in Rohan's golden hall, and though his audience has never seen a Silmaril, never heard Lorelin's leaves whisper, they lean forward when he sings of Fëanor's fiery hands, shaping jewels that held the light of paradise. The children gasp when he mimics Morgoth's roar, the timbers of the hall creaking as if the Dark Lord himself lurks in the shadows. In Gondor's archives, a scribe traces faded runes with ink-stained fingers, copying a chronicle so ancient the vellum crumbles at the edges. The words tell of Eärendil's star appearing over the battlefield of the last alliance, how its light made Sauron's armies falter for one crucial moment. The scribe pauses, glancing through the arched window where that same star now hangs above Minas Tirith's white towers. He wonders, did the elves truly believe their stories would outlast them? Then he dips his quill and keeps writing, because some truths are too heavy to hold alone. The dwarves tell it differently, of course. In the echoing halls of the lonely mountain, a white-bearded elder taps his ale tankard for silence. Aye, the elves loved their shiny gems, he grumbles, but it was the Noglamir that brought the worst of the bloodshed. The younger dwarves nod sagely, though none dare mention the hoards of mithril and gold piled in their own vaults. Some hungers transcend race. And in the Shire, where the grass grows thick over hills that once shook with dragon fire, a hobbit grandmother gathers her grandchildren beneath the party tree. See that bright one there? She points to Eärendil's star, her knobby finger trembling just slightly. "That's the even star, my dears. They say an elf lord still sails up there, keeping watch with a jewel on his brow." The fauntlings giggle, imagining a ship bobbing among the clouds. One asks if the elf ever gets seasick, and the old hobbit cackles, her laughter blending with the rustle of leaves. The light of the Silmarils is gone from the world, but not their echo. It lingers in the way a smith pauses mid-strike, feeling some inexplicable pull toward perfection. It flickers in the dreams of poets who wake with fragments of songs in languages they've never learned. Even the most pragmatic man, standing on a windswept cliff at dusk, might suddenly catch his breath when the last rays of the sun gild the waves just for a heartbeat. He understands why the Noldor once burned kingdoms for beauty. The stars themselves seem to remember. On cloudless nights, when Eärendil's star burns particularly bright, shepherds whisper that the air smells faintly of salt and singing. The elves are gone, their cities swallowed by forest or sea, but the light they loved persists not in jewels or battles or oaths, but in the quiet, stubborn way that stories outlive their tellers. And perhaps, in some far future, when even Gondor's towers are dust, someone will look up at that same star and feel, inexplicably, less alone. The tale of the Silmarils does not truly end, not when the wind still carries fragments of Maglor's lament across lonely shores, not when starlight catches in a child's upturned palm and makes them gasp with something like recognition. The Noldor's pride carved wounds into the world, yes, but their light, that lingers, not in the way Fëanor imagined, not as jewels clutched in fists or bound to crowns, but as something far more enduring, a whisper in the roots of stories that refuse to die. Listen closely on a quiet night, when the fire burns low and the embers sigh. That's not just wood cracking, it's the echo of Gondolin's fall, the hiss of dragon wings against smoke-choked skies. The breeze stirring your curtains, it carries the same salt that once stung the faces of elves watching their ships burn at Loskr, and Eärendil's star, that constant pinprick of light in the vast dark, isn't merely a celestial guide. It's a reminder that even the brightest flames can be forged into something kinder, something that guides instead of consumes. The Noldor are gone from Middle-earth, their halls empty, their swords rusted to dust. But their legacy isn't measured in ruins. It's in the way a smith pauses, just for a heartbeat, before shaping metal, as if half remembering a time when craft was more than skill, when creation bordered on sacrament. It's in the way a minstrel's voice cracks on the high notes of an old song, though they've never set foot in Valinor, and it's in the quiet moments when even the most practical soul looks up at the night sky and feels inexplicably that the light up there is watching back. The fire dims, the story slips into the space between waking and dreams, but somewhere, beyond the edges of the world, a ship still sails, a Silmaril still burns, and the wind carries the faintest hum of a harp's last, lingering string. The tale of the Silmarils ends as all great tales must, not with a close, but with an echo, one that lingers long after the final word fades.